Welcome to Mitchell Levy Presents, where I dive into the essential elements of clarity and credibility. Hosted by global credibility expert Mitchell Levy, today's episode offers invaluable insights to make you think and act more credibly. Join us as we explore living your values, boosting your credibility, and leading purposefully. Hi, Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert. And we are at one of the funnest times of my day where I get to interview an expert and talk about their values and learn more about who they are and how they show up in the world. And so today we have Dave.
Thanks for having me back. Well, I'm glad you asked me not what I did, but who I am, because that's more meaningful. I am a husband of almost 55 years. I'm a father of two boys, grandfather to four boys and one girl, who's the youngest and the most spoiled. And I'm passionate about trying to make the world a better place by having people understand what it is that they do that influences how they react to the world and the world reacts to them. So that's, repairing the world is sort of my mantra.
I hear you. And I love the concept repair the world, but let's put it more tactical. What does that mean? And it's not really the world, it's your world. Right?
It's my world, but it's also the world beyond me. For instance, when I was in the dark ages, 16 years old, I participated in the March on Washington in August of '63. I've worked with congressmen when I was younger. I was editor of the university newspaper and wrote editorials about Vietnam and other things that were going on in the world and civil rights. So it was my world, but it was the world beyond me as I saw a vision of what America, let's say, could be and what it was. And so I would say that, but it's also my world when I see things that are going on around me, of when others are silent and something is said or done that is inappropriate, is speaking up and letting somebody know that I heard them and what I think they said or did was wrong, and they can deal with it the way they want to. So that's what I mean by making the world better. It's all based on, who I am, how I was brought up, and how I want the legacy I want to leave for my grandchildren.
Ooh, God, there's so much to cover here. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to legacy. What popped in my head was I'd like you to think about a client that you worked with. Obviously, do not mention their name, because I want you to mention an experience where they did something that was not in line with what you thought was the appropriate way to do things, and you actually stepped up and let them know. Can you think, is there an example of that?
Yeah, there's one that pops in my head, which resulted in me giving back the retainer and walking away from the client.
Right. And remember, don't mention any client names.
No, I will not. No. We were developing a behavioral profile for high potential employees, and further large organization, listed probably in one of the top employers in Canada. And as part of the process, I look at the company values, I look at the behaviors, articulate the values. I challenge them on whether they're wall decor or authentic, to find out what the authentic values are, authentic behaviors. The directors and executive leaders that I was talking to that were conceived to be high potential or were already in the role loved it, because nobody had ever really talked to them about who they were, not what they did, and how they were successful and what differentiated a highly successful employee from a less successful employee. was something about behaviors, and those things are hardly ever talked about. So always talking about it. And then I went to the CHRO and said, the next step is for me to talk to the one-on-one with the executive team to get their opinions and hear about their thought. And the CHRO said, that can't be done because nobody talks to them, and give me the questions, I'll talk to them and report it back to you. And I said, no, no, no. I've learned from experience that I can get things out of them that they won't say to a colleague. Plus the fact that's not the way that we advertise the process to those I've already spoken to. And she said, well, I'll talk to them. She came back to me and said, no, they want her to do it. I said, that's not the way I work. And I was walking back. We were leaving the organization, and the person working with me, who happened to be my son, challenged me and said, I can go back there anytime I want, but he's never joining me again, because while we respect organizations that have values that might be different than ours, this is a bridge too far. And I thought about it. We talked about it some more. I felt he was right. And I went and met with the CHRO, and I returned the retainer and gave them the name of 3 consulting firms I thought could do a fairly good job, if not an excellent job with it. And they chose one of them and went ahead and did what they wanted to do. It wasn't a customized program. It was an off-the-shelf program. And from what I understand, didn't meet its needs at all. But I would not give in to doing something that I knew would not be as successful for the employees, nor consistent with what I promised them in the introduction of the focus groups and the sessions that I had with them. I couldn't come back to them and say, well, we changed the rules midstream. I didn't think that was the right thing to do. So I gave them back the retainer and walked away.
Dude, first of all, if you don't mind me saying, I'm very proud of you. That's a great story. I mean, the interesting part, and I want to make sure those who are paying attention listen to this. If there's something that's against your moral code that just doesn't fit, money is not relevant. And in this story, David, the most important part was your son reminded you of who you were, right? Because you're sitting there looking at money, and that's a really cool part of it. But a lot of times it is really hard to be the person you need to be. And by the way, I agree with you. You couldn't do a program like that without talking to the C-suite. And if they're not ready to give you access, which by the way, great example, because I have a conversation exactly like this week, where I may not be able to accept a job in the first place. Well, 2 things. I don't know if the person I'm gonna get is coachable. Second, I don't know if I'm gonna get access to the C-suite, in which case I'll say no. And it's really interesting. It's people are funny in as much as they're hiring an expert, and then they end up getting even worse than an expert when they get a canned product that doesn't fit their needs.
Yeah, so let me give you a correlation to that story. There was another client that I never worked with before, and she asked me to come in and talk with their executive team. And through a conversation with the executive team, I realized there was somebody else working with them as a coach, individual coach and team coach, who was pretty much doing the same thing I was doing. And I went to the CHRO and said to her, they've already started with this person. She's very, very good. And she's a lot easier on the eyes than I am. And they were all, unfortunately, senior men. And I said, why don't I just give you back the retainer? Because I haven't done anything yet. That was supposed to be the first day. And I realized it. And she looked at me and said, that was really nice of you. I'm glad you pointed that out. Keep the money. I'll find a different thing for you to do. She changed jobs 3 times at 3 different organizations and brought me in every time. And we had a fantastic relationship. So when it aligns, it works really well.
It's the concept of having the intent and commitment to do the right thing. And that is in line with making the world a better place.
That's right.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that example. I'm going to switch gears because when you mentioned creating a legacy for your granddaughter, I'm thinking, God, I want to hear, what is your definition of legacy?
My definition of legacy is, do they live the behaviors, the values? Do they have a vision of the world that fits my vision? I feel that my grandfather was very influential in my life. My father was very influential. They had the same type of outlook on the life. It's not about money. It's about who you are, not what you do. And, what you do is gets you to earn a living. Who you are makes the difference. It states, who you are and how you relate to people, and do you live your values, and are you for yourself alone, or are you for others? And if you're for yourself alone, it's really not a good legacy to leave behind. But if you're for others, and if you do it, it's not about I'll contemplate it, it's about doing it. And so if I can leave them with the feeling that they can make a difference in the world, they can live their values, that they have an outlook that the world can be a better place, and in their small corner of the world they can influence that, I'll be really happy. And there is a long-standing Jewish tradition of leaving a living will, and I've been writing a living will for them for the last couple of years and keep refining it. And that is how I want them to relate to values, how I want them to relate to family, how I want them to relate to the world. It has nothing to do with money or inheritance. Their inheritance is, and that's my legacy, is, do they wear the cloak, the mantle of who I am, not what I did.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so juicy. Thank you for that. It and for those who are just first sort of tuning in, what I want you to recognize is it's not living David's legacy of who he is. It's the general concept of being a good human who cares about others. And that's what you mean by that statement, and affecting the world in a positive way. Um, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Oh,
Give me the opportunity.
you're welcome. Well, it was funny in the green room. I don't ever like dating things, so we'll just say I'm somewhere on my PhD journey. Now, you may be watching this and I'm already done, but but in the green room we talked about the fact that I'm actively doing a PhD and dissertation that I'm going to then use, moving forward in my life. And you said that you had the ability to. You've been using your PhD your entire life, your dissertation your entire life. Talk a little bit more about what that is, and what does that mean?
Well, my dissertation, I have a doctor in education from Boston University with coursework completed at the Harvard School of Education, graduate school.
Two very small universities. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, across the river from each other.
Yeah, actually, they are close. Yeah.
And one of my dissertation readers was the late Don Oliver, who had created exactly what I wanted to do, a social studies curriculum on making the world a better place and caring about the community and building community and doing something to be aware of how people impact each other. And so the Harvard Social Studies curriculum was something I wanted to work on, um, for rather different reasons. He pointed me to Boston University to apply there, and I got accepted. And so my coursework was at Harvard, my dissertation work was at BU. So he was one of my readers. And actually, at the hearing, at the dissertation defense, he joked that he was angry at me because I forced him to cross the river for the first time in 30 years. And it was really on how do the values, how do you teach ethics and values to high school students that don't have an inclination or a school system that supports this concept of community and doing what's right? And how do you get people to listen to each other, different points of view, so they can have a civil discussion, learn from each other, and grow? And that is something that was really important to me. It fit with my lifelong journey of wanting to make the world a better place, focusing on values. And so I learned a lot from that dissertation about adolescent development, about what influences people's decision making, about the place of values in society. And when I left education and went to work at Hay Management, we were working on an organization that we were developing a 5-day course on leadership for. And I saw an opportunity to integrate the values into that course. And I've been working on values and behaviors on the corporate level since the mid 80s. And I just keep going back to things that either I learned from the dissertation or as a result of the dissertation years later have a practical application for. So I feel it's an opportunity that it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Right. By the way, that's so amazing. And what since we talked about values generically, what I want to do is share this screen. And in the research I had done on the 10 values of credibility, you've addressed at least 8 of them so far. Right. So what stands out for you in terms of what people either don't do or you'd like to see more people do? Right. And I could walk through what you said and what you did, but for those who are really actively engaged in this conversation, you could see the success that you've delivered. I actually love it.
I think that integrity is a misunderstood word, and that integrity is the sum total of living one's values. You can't have integrity if you say these are your values and you can justify not living them, but living all of them except for one. If you don't live one of them, you don't have integrity. So that leads to authenticity. So if you live your values, you have authenticity. But if you violate one of your values, it doesn't matter why, then you really don't have authenticity. You don't have the credibility that you need to say that you have the authenticity of being the person that you are evolving to be. I don't know if that made sense, but
No, that was great. That was great. One of the things, and thank you for picking those two. One of the things here you'll notice is that integrity is the only value that's listed twice.
yeah, I see that.
So this is under being trustworthy is the integrity associated with what you say, who you are. But
Mm-hmm.
being known, it's the internal integrity, who you really are. And I was as you were talking, I'm thinking to myself, the disconnect, the incongruous state is when there is a mismatch here. And by the way, this is when the hair in the back of your neck sticks up. This is where you run away from people because it just like a CHRO that wants to keep control of the C-suite and not let somebody like you access to them, even though you're doing something for them and their employees. Like that level of incongruity is something where you then let your authenticity come into place.
Yeah,
I
and
was I was thinking about that, David, is because you said when there's a mismatch, when there's not a mismatch, then you're authentically you. I was just trying to pull this together because it was fascinating to me to think about it. So,
I think that the in that being known is if you have the authenticity because you live your values, so you have integrity, therefore you have true commitment. So commitment is an outgrowth of the consistency of living your values, which gives you authenticity. So I think there's like a DNA thread through all of that, because if you have all of that and you're working with people that have similar sense, you're going to wind up being liked. So I think that you have a model there that is sequential.
I love that. Thank you. Well, give me an example of it, and you have, but give me an example of. I call it. Oh no, you haven't on this one. You talked about respect. So there are two values associated with being liked. Um, One is showing respect, and you do that in a couple ways. How you talk about your grandchildren, and also how you talk about your son. You definitely showed both the ability to give respect as well as to be coachable, which is fascinating. The one value we haven't talked
Well,
about yet.
with one son, there's not a choice because unlike normal employees, your son will tell you what he thinks in a tone of voice that is your son's. So,
Yeah, I know that.
so
I got I
people who
got
work
one of
in
those.
family have a bit of a drawback because if they have a good relationship with their kids will tell them the truth, whether in a way they might not want to hear it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I relate. Tell me about the last value we hadn't really talked about yet. I call it spreading cred dust or sharing your stage. And actually, you did talk about it. I take it back. Where you shared your stage was a place in which you recognized that there was another coach, actually twice, another coach doing the same thing. So that was one place of sharing your stage. But also when you came in with three, like you could have said, here's your money back when you said no to this company, but you came in with three substitutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, dude, you're credible in my book. You've hit every one of those values
Well,
in
I
a
thank you
short
for
period of
that.
time. Nicely done, by the way.
I thank you for that.
So tell me about what is it. Let's talk a little bit about your company and your book and what you're doing today. What's next?
My book is called Selecting the Best, Building a Workforce Driven by Values for Lasting Success. It really looks at what we're talking about: organizations that hire people that are aligned to the value behaviors of the organization have employees that are more productive, retain longer, and more have a better employee experience because the way they want to be treated is the way they are treated because that you predefined in the interview process that they already have alignment to the behaviors of the values. So the first half of the book is how does a company go about identifying its authentic values, not the wall decor that's on some website, but the real values, the ones that are lived and are, and how do you articulate those in behaviors, not in words or in some hallmark statement, but how do you find those? Then how do you translate those behaviors into interview questions and conduct a behavioral interview that will actually get you past your own biases? Because once you decode it, you're going to see the people that stand out that either do or do not have alignment. And whether you like that person or not, they might have the highest score or the lowest score, depending if you like or don't like them. And therefore, it's a wake up call that you're going to hire the person that actually is going to make you look good and fit the organization. So it's a very powerful process that I've evolved for the last 30 plus years. And it has included in there in the appendix a list of behavioral suggested questions for 30 different competencies, and it gives a test if you really understand the concept at the end. And I also talk about AI and some of the drawbacks of using AI for recruitment and selection. And so it's all there. My website is sagltd.com. On there, I have a number of videos that express these ideas, as well as ideas around employee experience, around AI, using AI, and the ethics of AI in talent management. So there's that, which hopefully people can find helpful, and they can get in touch with me through the website.
Nice. Well, thank you for that. So, David, is there a particular question or concept that that I didn't ask you that if I was we're gonna throw out a question, what would that be?
I think there's two of them actually, that now that I think about it. One is this concept of vision as powerful. Vision and purpose are powerful, but vision and purpose without the values and the behaviors of the values is just an ideal. It's a utopian state. So having a vision, which organizations create, and then they find values they kind of gerrymander to fit the vision, is going to be a roadmap for disaster, because they're not the authentic. We talk about authenticity. They're not the authentic values. So organizations, I believe, need to define their authentic values first, and then create a vision. And the correctness of the vision is, will it allow them to live the values? If in the execution of moving towards this vision, will they allow them to execute the values? If the answer is no, change the vision, because people aren't going to change the values. And the second part is a lot of organizations go into strategic planning and they come up with a new vision as a result, and therefore they have to come up with new values to fit their strategic plan. And then all the inmates get confused and disgruntled and unengaged because they live those values and that made it a good place to work. And now suddenly you say, we're going to change the rules on you. No, the correctness of the strategic plan is, will it move us towards our vision or purpose? And will the strategic plan ensure that people execute it living the values? If the answer to either of those no is change the strategic plan, don't change your purpose and don't change your values. I think we could have gone down another half hour on that topic.
Well, that one would be interesting because you and I have slightly different approaches in that world. So that by itself would be very fascinating. But David, I want to say thank you so much for being you and sharing and showing an aspect of you that allows if someone is hiring you and working with you, you've shown an aspect that makes it very easy for people to see who you are and what it would feel like to actually interact with you. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been fun.
My pleasure. Well, by definition, everything we do should be fun. And listen, now you're still here. If you're still here, this is now your time. This is your time to spread David's cred dust. There's an idea, there's an action, there's a thought that came out of today's conversation that you want to share on the social media choice that makes sense for you. Make sure you do that. Feel free to tag David, tag me. We'll respond. And thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate it. Thanks again, David. Thanks everyone else for joining me. Look forward to seeing you at the next episode of Leaders Living Their Values. Take care, everyone. Bye now. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you found value in today's episode. Like, subscribe, and share your aha moments on your preferred platform. Remember, credibility starts with clarity and living your values. Learn more at mitchelllevy.com. Until next time.